Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Pinson to Flood for the Win, the Hall of the Very Good. Today is my second installment of looking at teams. You know, the new way, I think it's a fun way of collecting, is collecting by War of the Decade. So this is the 1950 to 59 Philadelphia Kansas City Athletics. And what I do is you pick the best player for the decade that had the most WAR at each position. And you can kind of play with it a little bit. It's these. I've shown these before, these lists that I make. These are available to anybody who watches this show. If you want any list of any team from 50 to 59 or 60 to 69, all you got to do is reach out to me, and I'll make sure you get this list so that you don't have to try to figure it out. This literally has anybody who started and then the top one. So like as you can see here, there were like 9 different catchers, but the catcher with the most WAR, which wasn't a lot, was Hal Smith. So he's the starting catcher and the guy that I collect. And we'll look at each of the players, each of the positions, but anybody who wants any of these sheets, please don't hesitate. You know, let's get back to where I was. I had to pause for a second because my dog decided to bark while I'm in the middle, needing to go outside while I'm in the middle of recording. And she takes priority. That's just the way it is. So I'm back. So again, these lists are available. Anybody who wants any list of any team, all 16 teams that were available, and then there were 20 teams in the 60s and 60 to 69. Don't hesitate to reach out. I love doing this stuff. I've put a lot of these together. I've got a lot of teams already done. If you give me a team that doesn't have done, it only takes me about an hour to do it. So reach out to me. And again, this is the best player for each position. And you can play with this. This is the neat thing about it. I've sent off a number of these lists to people, and I tell them, play with it the way you want. But what it does is it makes you collect players that you don't know a lot about, or it makes you learn about them. And I find it a great way of collecting, and I've enjoyed the heck out of it. So we're going to start. This is the 1957 card of the team, Kansas City A's. We're going to start with the catcher, and that's Hal Smith. Hal Smith ended up playing... he played 5 years with from 56 to 59, 4 years with Kansas City. Ended up with a 1.9 WAR, which is not great, but he wasn't a bad player. Had 13 homers and 41 RBIs in 1957. Overall, he played 10 years. He had 715 hits, 58 homers, 323 RBIs, a 267 average. A solid player. Had a pretty nice. Had a pretty nice career considering. You know, and the team had, I mean, Joe Astroth played the most years. He played 5 years, but he had a negative WAR almost every year. He just wasn't, he was a pretty good catcher, but he wasn't a great hitter. Playing first base is the great Ferris Fain, and I think he was a really good player. His career didn't start till he was 26, and it ended pretty early, but here's a couple cards of Ferris Fain. I actually am collecting his whole run. It's one of the players I just really like. He had a WAR of 12.8, which is not too bad. Pretty good WAR for the decade. Ferris Fain played 9 years. Played his first from 47 to 52 with Philadelphia. So really we're counting 50, 51, and 52, but he did... Those were his 3 best WAR years, were 50, 51, and 52. He was an all-star 5 years in a row. He batted .282, won the batting championship 2 years in a row with a .344 and a .327, and had an on-base percentage of .438. For his career, he had an on-base percentage of .424. Listen to some of these numbers. In 1949, he had 136 walks, but only 51 strikeouts. The next year, 133 walks, only 26 strikeouts. He had a .430 on-base percentage. The year he hit .344, he had 80 walks, only 20 strikeouts, batted .344 with a .451 on-base percentage. Wasn't a big home run hitter, and only had 1 year where he hit 10. Led the league in doubles in 1952 with 43. Just a really good, solid player. Was on the cover of a number of magazines. I have a couple really beautiful magazines. I forgot to bring them out, or I'd show them to you. He had 570 RBIs, 48 home runs in a 9-year career. Had a 27.4 for his career. Just a really good, solid player. Ferris Fain, if you don't know a lot about him, go read about him, because he was He was a really terrific player, much better than people realize. Ended up leaving there and going and playing for the, when he left Philadelphia after 1952, he went to the White Sox for a few years, Detroit and Cleveland. The second baseman is Jim Finnegan. I'll put him this way so you guys can see him. Jim Finnegan. Solid player. Only played a couple years, though. What I did is on the back of these, that's the way I did it, I put their WAR. He had a 2.8 WAR. One of the years was a 2.7. They did not have a lot of really good second basemen, at all in Philadelphia. I mean, Billy Hitchcock, Pete Suter, Skeeter Kell, Case Michael, Spook Jacobs, Billy Hunter, Jerry Lumpy, and Jim Finnegan. Also, Hector Lopez played there, but I put Hector Lopez at third base. But Jim Finnegan had the highest WAR at 2.8. His best year was, he had 2 years with Kansas City, 3 years from 1954 to 1956. 1954, he was an All-Star. 55 is an All-Star. Solid years, over 30 doubles, 9 homers, 68 RBIs, 255 average. In 1954, at the age of 25, his rookie year, he batted .302 with a .381 on base percentage. Just a solid player. But you learn about players like this because I didn't know a lot about this guy, right? Because I never collected him. The shortstop was Eddie Yost, who would end up becoming a manager also. Eddie Yost was a solid player, had a nice career. Eddie Yost had a 13.9 WAR for the decade. He came up in 1944 as a rookie at 17, then went into the military and came back, started off with the Washington Senators, and played with them all the way. You know what? Got the wrong guy. It's Eddie Jost. Not Eddie Yost. It's Eddie. This is Eddie Yost, but he played for Washington. It's Eddie Joss is the guy I'm thinking of, guys. I got it mixed up. No, the shortstop was him. I'm sorry. I got it mixed up. Eddie Yost did play. Sorry, just kind of messed up there. But he had 13.9 WAR. Solid player. Had a 12-year career. Had a 12.7. What was his career? Trying to find his career. Where does stats go? I just lost his stats. Isn't that kind of crazy? Oh, here it is. He had a 35.1 WAR. You know, this is weird, guys. I messed up on this one. Missed out on the shortstop there. We'll move on to the third baseman. My bad. I'll figure that one out and get back to you. I don't know why I messed that one up. But Hector Lopez played third base. Had a solid career. Real nice career with Kansas City, as most players did with Kansas City in the 50s and Philadelphia. But when they became Kansas City, they became the farm system of the Yankees. He'd ended up leaving Kansas City in 1959 and playing for the Yankees until 1966, the bulk of his career. Had a 12.7 WAR for his career. His WAR, as you can see on the back here, was 9.5 for Kansas City. Solid player. Number of good years. Hit over 10 home runs on 7 different occasions. He had 15, 18, 11, 17, 22, 16, 14, 10. Not a huge power hitter, but a pretty solid power hitter. He had 93 RBIs in 1959, batted .283. His best year with Kansas City was 1958, the year before, because halfway through the year in 59, he was traded to the Yankees. He had 17 homers, 73 RBIs, 261 average, 317 on base percentage. Just solid player. His first career had 1,251 hits, 136 homers, 591 RBIs. Would end up hitting 269 with a 330 on base percentage. And then we'll get to the outfield. The outfield had a lot of solid, really good players. Left field, we're going to go with Elmer Vallo. Elmer Vallo was a solid player. He had a very long career. He played till he was 40 years old. Came up at 19 with Philadelphia, the Athletics, in 1940. and would play till 1961 and go back to and he would end up with the Philadelphia Phillies. So started with Philadelphia and with Philadelphia, but in different leagues. Probably one of the only players to ever do that. There probably isn't too many of them. He missed his age 23 and 24 year in the military service, which were prime years. Would end up coming back to Philadelphia, and through the 50s he had a WAR of 12. He a number of good seasons, was never a power hitter, but he was a really good average hitter and a great on-base percentage. I mean, 1949, he had 119 walks and only 32 strikeouts. Batted .283. That was his highest WAR average, was 4.5, but then he started 1950 with a 2.3, 1951 a 3.9 WAR. Batted .280, .302, .281. Had 10, 7, and 5 homers. Decent on the base pass, double-digit steals 6 years in a row. Was just known for getting on base. He had a lifetime average of right at .398 for on-base percentage. Just a great player. Year after year, well over 400 for his on-base percentage. Ended up with a nice career in baseball. Again, played 20 years and would end up being the left fielder for about 5 of the years. Let me see here. Yeah, he played 6 years from 1950 to 1956 with a 12 WAR. In center field is Gus Zernial, who was the big power hitter. Move these over. Gus Zernial ended up being 7th in home runs for the decade of the 50s. Guy was an outstanding hitter, power hitter. Not the best fielder in the world, but played from 1951 to 1957 with Philadelphia, and would have a nice 11-year career. He'd played from 1949, came with the White Sox for 3 years. His rookie year, he got into 73 games, batted .318 with a .366 on-base percentage. 1951, he would lead the league in home runs with 33 and RBIs with 129, and also strikeouts with 101. But he batted .268 with a .345 on-base percentage. He'd be traded in 51 to Philadelphia, and spend most of his year in Philadelphia. Of those 33 home runs, he hit them all with Philadelphia. Had 125 RBIs. Ended up with a 3.2 WAR in 1952 at the age of 29. He had 29 homers with 100 RBIs. Followed that up with his only All-Star appearance in 1953 with 42 homers, 108 RBIs, 4 steals, .284 average, and .355 on-base percentage. Again, a really good player. He did 14 home runs in 54, 30 in 55, 16 in 56, 27 in 57, with 69 RBIs. His last really full-time year, the next 2 years, he would move on after the 57 season to Detroit and end up his career with an 8.4 WAR, but 237 homers and 776 RBIs with a .265 average and 1,000 hits. Another just solid player. Had a nice career. This guy started off as a Yankee. One of the few times you start off as a Yankee and come to Kansas City. Usually as you was with Kansas City and you went to New York. This guy had a nice 12-year career. With New York, he was a part-time player until he got to Kansas City in 57. 1958 it'd be his only year that he'd make the All-Star team. He would hit 38 homers with 104 RBIs for the Kansas City A's with a .371 on base percentage and a .305 average. He had 1957, he had 11 homers, then 38, then 20, and then 14. And then he would become pretty much a part-time player, going from Kansas City back to the Yankees, then to the to the expansion Angels team in 1961, then back to the Yankees in 61 and 62, and then ended his career in Houston in 1962 as an expansion team. So he had an interesting career. He had 105 homers, 374 RBIs with a .276 average. Had an 11.1 WAR for his career. But that's your starting outfield for Philadelphia from 1950 to 1959. Here's another Bob Sir. This is the 57. I love the 57s. That's just a great year. You might know this guy, Roger Maris, kind of a good ball player. Him and Simpson were the fourth and fifth outfielders. And Merritt's, the only reason he wasn't in the starting is he only played in 58 and 59. He was a rookie in 1957 with Cleveland and 58, and then came over to Kansas City halfway through the 58 season where he'd hit 19 homers for Kansas City with 53 RBIs, 247 average. The following year would be his only full-time year with Kansas City in 1959. 3.3 WAR with a 16 homers, 72 RBIs, 273 average, 359 on-base percentage. And then he'd move on to the Yankees where he'd hit 39, 61, 33, 23, 26. And at the age of 32 would move on and spend his 32 and 33-year seasons with St. Louis before retiring. Had a 12-year career, 38.2 WAR, but was the fourth outfielder for the Kansas City team based on basically a year and a half. Harry Simpson played in the Negro Leagues. That's where he started. At the age of 20 in 1946. Played in the Negro Leagues for 3 years, so 1948. Came up with Cleveland in 51. In 52, became a starter for Cleveland. Had a 2.1 WAR with 21 doubles, 10 triples, 10 homers, 65 homers, 266 batting average with a 337 on base percentage. They called him Suitcase because he played on a bunch of different teams. Like every year, it seemed like he was on the move. Came to Kansas City in 55. Was a full-time player at 5 homers, 52 RBIs, 301 average. The following year, he'd make the All-Star team, his only appearance in 1956. Played in 141 games with almost 600 at-bats, 160 hits, 22 doubles, 11 triples, 21 homers, 105 RBIs. Led the league in triples in both 56 and 57. He'd bat 293, 270. He had his WAR was 3.2 for his career. His WAR was only 5.5. Had a lot of years where he had negative WAR, just didn't get a lot of time to play. But for about a 3 or 4 year period, was a really good player for Kansas City. His 3 best years were with Kansas City. After that, he'd move on to the Yankees, back to Kansas City, go to the White Sox, Pittsburgh, and he'd play till he was 33 years old. Ended his career with 870 hits, 76 homers, 435 RBIs, with a 269 average. Solid player. And the other player that I use this guy as a utility, one, because he's one of my favorite players. I'm a huge Vic Power fan, and I'm going to do a whole show on him one time. I just really like Vic Power. He was a heck of a ball player. He gets the nod as my utility guy on this team. He came up in 1954 with Philadelphia. The Athletics played with Kansas City from 1955 to 1958. He had a WAR of 7.8. Wasn't good enough to get him in the starting lineup just because of the position he played at first base. This guy was a really good player. Batted 319, 309, 259, 312, 302, 317 his first 6 years. Made 2 All-Star teams with Kansas City in 55 and 56. In 55, he had 34 doubles, 10 triples, 19 homers, 76 RBIs, 319 average with a 354 on base percentage. Followed it up with his second All-Star appearance in 1956. 21 doubles, 5 triples, 14 homers, 63 RBIs, and a 309 average. Get this, guys. He only struck out 16 times, but he only walked 24 times. Like, literally, this guy's a hacker, and a great hacker. Ended up with his career with a 15.3 WAR. Had a solid career, 1,716 hits. Outstanding player, 290 doubles, 49 triples, 126 homers, 658 RBIs. Stole 45 bases for a first baseman. Had a 284 average for his career. One of my favorite players, a really good, solid player. Ended up leaving Kansas City for Cleveland, then went to Minnesota, the LA Angels, Philadelphia, and came back to the California Angels. But that's the offense. Now we get to the pitchers. This guy happens to be 100 years old and is still living. I know a lot of TTMers love this guy because he still signs at age 100. God bless him, Bobby Shantz. He's the number 1 starter on Philadelphia for this period. Came up in 1949 and pitched with Kansas City until 1956, and you'll be shocked to know he went to the Yankees. Like all good Kansas City players, they end up going to the Yankees at that point. His best year was 1952. He had an 8.8 WAR, which led the league. He was 24-7 with a 2.48 ERA. Started 33 games, had 27 complete games and 5 shutouts. Pitched 279 innings, had 152 strikeouts. And what made the All-Star team, no kidding. 1951 made the All-Star team. He was 18-10 with a 3.94 ERA. Again, just a great player. 25 starts, 13 complete games, 3 shutouts. Would end up being hurt over the next few years. Didn't get in as many games. When he got traded to the Yankees, it was his last All-Star appearance in 1957. He had a 3.1 WAR in 57, 11-5 with a 2.45 ERA. 21 games started, 9 complete games, 1 shutout, 5 saves. Pitched 173 innings. Would never really be much of a starter after that, but he played all the way to 1964. Had a nice 16-year career with a 32 WAR, 119 wins, 99 losses, with a 3.3 ERA. He had 171 games started, 78 complete games, almost a third of his games he completed with 15 shutouts and 48 saves. Just an outstanding pitcher. Let's move him over here. Second in the rotation was Ned Garver, who very quietly ended up with 100 and had a pretty nice career. Started off with St. Louis Browns, which they didn't win much, but he won 20 games in 1951 with the St. Louis Browns, which is no easy feat to have done back then with the Browns. He had a 7.3 WAR in 1950 to lead the league. He was 13-18 with a 3.39 ERA, had 22 complete games, led the league. 1951 for the Browns, he had a 5.4 WAR, was 20-12 with a 3.73 ERA, 24 complete games. Came to Kansas City in 1957, 58, 59, and 60. He was a starter all 4 years he played for him. He was 6-13. He was 12-11, 10-13, and 4-9. ERAs all in the mid to high threes. Solid pitcher. Kansas City's pitching during this time period was not good at all. Ned Garver ends up being one of the starters with a 3.8 WAR for the time period. They just didn't have a lot of good pitchers. Alex Kellner, Bobby Shantz was the most at 16.2. Just the way it was. Alex Kellner will be your third starter. Had a short career. Where is Alex Kellner? Well, guys, I lost his sheet. Isn't that crazy? Lost Alex Kellner's sheet, but he's the number 3 starter. He had a WAR of he's probably the second best pitcher. 7.4 WAR is the second highest WAR. Solid pitcher as a left-hander. Here's a couple of his cards. Again, love collecting these cards. I would have never collected these cards, and it's just been a real joy to collect them and enjoy to talk about this team. The number 4 starter was Arnie Portocario. Say that name a couple times, huh? Solid pitcher for a couple years. Had a short career of 7 years. He was 38-57 with Kansas City. With Philadelphia, in 1954, he was 9-18 with a 4.06 ERA. In 33 starts, he had 16 complete games. Overall, his WAR was 4.5. Loved, it'd been nice if Top would have used a different pose, but pretty good, pretty cool cards. Always like the 55s and 56s because I like the horizontal look. The 5th starter, move these over a little bit so I can bring in the 5th starter. 5th starter was Bud Daly. Bud Daly was a pretty good little left-hander himself. He had a 4.3 WAR, and he got that all in 1 year because he was only with the team the last year, 1959. And He came over in 58, but hardly played. In 59, had a 4.3 WAR. He was 16-13 with a 3.16 ERA. He was the best pitcher on the team. Went to back-to-back All-Star games in 59 and 60. Ended up with 12 complete games in 59 with 2 shutouts, 216 innings, 125 strikeouts. The next year, he was 16-16 with 35 games started, 13 complete games, 231 innings pitched. Just a solid fifth starter. And we'll end this with just looking at, I decided to pick 4 relievers. There were so many of them that were just so close. Virgil Trucks. There's Ray Herbert. Tom Gorman. And Maury Martin. And just real quick, we'll run through these guys. You know, Virgil Trucks had a nice career. You know, ended up winning 177 games, had a 42 WAR for his career, 135 losses. He started off with Detroit from 1941 to 1953, then went to St. Louis Browns, then to the White Sox, Detroit, and 57 through 58, he was with Kansas City. We ended up with a 3.5 WAR, was a reliever at that time. Had a 3.03 ERA, had 7 saves one year and 4 saves the next. Just a solid player, but had a really nice career. Had a 3.39 ERA for his career. Started 328 games. Had 124 complete games, 33 shutouts, and 30 saves. Just solid player. They had a lot of guys like that. That's what this team was made up of. Ray Herbert would start off in 1950 with Detroit. He'd come to Kansas City in 55, play with them through 1961. Come over as a reliever, but then became a starter in 58, was 8-8 with a 3.50 ERA. In 59, he was 11-11, had 26 starts, 10 complete games, 2 shutouts, with a 4.85 ERA, and would end his career with a 16 WAR, 104 wins, 107 losses, 4.01 ERA, 15 saves, and 1,800 innings. Tom Gorman started off with the Yankees and came to Kansas City in 55. Played with him through 1959. Had a 6.3 WAR for his career, 36-36. Most of that WAR was earned on Kansas City. Led the team in saves in 1955 with 18. 1956, he was 9-10 with a 3.83 ERA. Solid pitcher. 3.77 ERA over his career. He only started 33 games, was mostly middle relief to being a closer, and had an 8-year career. And the final guy was Maury Martin. He played 10 years with a 4.4 WAR for his career, 38-34. Played with Philadelphia from 51 to 53. Had 7 saves in that time, was 21-28 in the 3 years he played for Philadelphia. His best year being 1953 with a 2.0 WAR. He was 10-12 with a 4.43 ERA. Started 11 games, but finished 41 with 7 saves. So there's the 1950 through 59 Kansas City, Philadelphia Athletics by WAR. And again, I appreciate you guys watching. If you didn't get a chance to see my interview with Orlando from Collectors of Dream, please go see it. It was just a wonderful interview. Had a great time. Comment. Let me know what you think about this. If you're interested in any teams, let me know and I'll get them to you. And I'll be doing this again really soon. Talk to you later and take care.